Welcome to Memorable Moment, where every story touches the heart and brings back the warmth of family and love. Today's story is one that might just remind you of a moment in your own life, a moment that truly matters. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into a tale that will stay with you long after the video ends. And if you enjoy heartfelt stories like this, make sure to stay until the end. We have so much more to share with you. Here's the English translation of your story. An unfinished dream. The morning sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm glow on the old piano in the corner of the living room. John stepped closer, gently running his fingers over the faded keys. How long had it been since he last played a full song? He smiled softly as memories from the past rushed back. Years ago, John was a 17-year-old boy, full of dreams. He grew up in a working-class family where music was considered a luxury. But John had loved the piano ever since he was a child. Every time he passed by the music store in town, he would stop and admire the gleaming pianos through the glass. The first time he ever touched a piano was in the local church. The priest, noticing how the young John always gazed longingly at the instrument, smiled and let him try it. The moment his fingers touched the keys, John knew he had found the greatest love of his life. But learning to play wasn't easy when his family couldn't afford lessons. John had to learn by observing the wealthier children in their music classes, quietly watching from the side. At night, after everyone in the house had gone to sleep, he would draw piano keys on an old wooden table, imagining himself playing a beautiful melody. Everything changed when a music competition was announced in town. The winner would receive a scholarship, an opportunity John couldn't afford to miss. Determined, he practiced every day with all his heart. During school breaks, he would rush to the church to practice. At night, he would close his eyes and visualize every note, every movement of his fingers. The day of the competition arrived. His heart pounded as he stepped onto the stage. Before him stood a grand piano, shining under the lights, and below him, hundreds of eyes watched. Taking a deep breath, he placed his fingers on the keys and began to play. The first notes rang out, followed by another, flowing like gentle waves against the shore. John no longer saw the audience. It was just him and the music. As the final note faded, there was a brief moment of silence, then applause erupted like thunder. But that dream was left unfinished. John returned home, his heart soaring with hope that he could finally pursue his passion. But his father, a practical and stern man, was already waiting for him. Music won't put food on the table, John. You need to focus on providing for your family, on getting a stable job. That scholarship he never got to accept. John never blamed his father. He understood that, at that time, his family needed him more than his music did. So he said goodbye to his piano dreams and stepped into the life of a hard-working man. He worked at a factory, then became a skilled carpenter. He got married, had children, and eventually grandchildren. Life was still beautiful in its own way, but deep inside, his love for music never faded. Now, at 70 years old, standing in front of the old piano in his living room, John smiled to himself. He sat down, placed his hands on the keys once more. Though his fingers were now aged and stiff, the melodies remained as if they had never left him. The music filled the room, soft, tender, and full of emotion. And this time, no one could stop him from following his dream. That autumn afternoon, as golden leaves danced outside the window, John sat at his piano, lost in a song he had memorized in his youth. His aged fingers moved across the keys, slower than before, but filled with passion. In the corner of the room, a middle-aged man watched in silence. Thomas, John's eldest son, had never seen his father play before. He had always thought of him as a simple carpenter, a man whose life revolved around wood, nails, and hammers. But today, before him was someone else, a man whose soul had always belonged to music. "You never told me you could play the piano, Dad," Thomas finally spoke. John paused, his eyes reflecting a lifetime of memories. "I never really had the chance to," he chuckled softly, "but music never left me." Thomas stepped forward, resting a hand on his father's shoulder. "Then why not do it now? You always taught me that it's never too late to chase a dream." John laughed. "You remember that?" "Of course, Dad." Thomas, too, had a secret he had never shared with his father. Behind the image of a successful businessman, he had once been a boy who loved to write, who dreamed of becoming a writer. But life, responsibilities and work had forced him to push that dream aside. That night, after the house had fallen silent, Thomas opened an old box he had kept for years. Inside were faded manuscripts, stories he had written but never finished. Holding those pages, he realized something. Just like his father with music, his love for writing had never truly disappeared. It had only been forgotten. And so the two of them began a new journey. John enrolled in a music class for seniors in town. At first, he struggled with music theory and finger exercises, but the joy of returning to his passion made him forget the difficulties. As for Thomas, after years of hesitation, he finally found the courage to send his manuscript to a publisher. The stories he once thought no one would care about were now being read and appreciated. A year later, on a special evening, John sat before the piano at a small cafe in town. In front of him sat his family, friends, and even strangers who had come to listen. For the first time in his life, he played for an audience, without fear, without hesitation. And among the crowd, Thomas sat there smiling as he watched his father finally live his dream. In his hands was the first book he had ever published. 2 generations, 2 dreams once left behind, now fulfilled at last. Because it is never too late to pursue what your heart truly desires. If you're watching this video, take a moment to think about your family. Is there someone waiting for your call? A letter you meant to write but never sent? A loved one you keep promising to visit but always put off? Don't let unspoken words turn into regrets. Pick up the phone, send that message, or better yet, go see them, because time waits for no one. If this story touched you, hit the like button so more people can hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories about family, love, and the moments that truly matter in life. See you in the next story.